Ciao everyone and welcome to the analysis of the song that ranked 6th at the Sanremo Music Festival 2026. I'm talking about Prima Che by Nayt, who I thought was pronounced Nate. No, it's Nayt. And yes, it is like an Italian pronunciation of this graphy, and it is related to his real name. But first, the meaning of the title. It would be before that. Prima means before. I would say before that because we also have the che. This is related to the fact that prima che and other forms like prima di are going to be shown a lot in the lyrics of the song. So, that said, for the meaning, as usual, we're going to talk about the way the performer, the author, in this case also the author because Nayt wrote his own lyrics, and we are talking about the way he presented it during Sanremo Music Festival the before. So once everybody is chosen and has to present what they are going to sing in the festival. Now, he said, "Today we are increasingly distant in some ways, despite the internet. We have more and more things between us, the masks we wear, the wounds, the screens we communicate through. And I wonder if we could go further. The song speaks of this. The song is about this. Of the will, the desire to meet with the other, to recognize and see each other for who we truly are." But then, what did Lorenzo Coveri said? Now, he evaluated the song with a quite high grade, 7 out of 10. And trust me, given that the highest grade he gave was something about 7.8, the fact that this song was evaluated 7 out of 10 is quite of a high grade. At the beginning, I wasn't really understanding because during the festival, the performance of this song didn't stick with me. Okay, but this is one of the songs where after researching, checking out the interviews and whatnot, I changed my idea and now I understand why it ranked so high and I can't be too mad about it. There are some issues with these songs, but I'm going to talk about it later. So, Lorenzo Coveri wrote, "The rapper William Mezzanotte is Ernia, 31 years old. He uses his mother's last name, so Mezzanotte is his mother's last name, which is not common because in Italy children usually take the last name of the father. Openly calls himself Nayt in informal spelling and hates capital letters. In fact, Nayt, technically this is a mistake because Nayt is written all in lowercase. And yes, it is done on purpose because the artist said, "Why to take away my importance and shift the light onto what I write?" So the fact that everything is in lowercase is made on purpose. And what he raps will be an uninterrupted verbal flow, starting with the anaphoric sequence also cited in the song's title, prima che or prima di. Other typical rap traits include rhyming couplets and assonances, even distant ones, with often ironic intent or puns with paronomasia. So paronomasia is a figure of speech which is also called play on words plays, if you will. And then there are colloquialism, slang, social media terms, and much more. A manipulator of words in lowercase. Badumts. So, let's talk about these lyrics because, as Nayt himself said, there are a lot of things being said. He said, "I had a lot of things to say in my song." Also, before moving on, why Nayt? Why this pronunciation? Because mezzanotte in Italian is midnight. So that's why the different phonetics, like the unexpected, at least from my point of view, phonetic of his name. We start with a verse. A verse quite long, so I divided it into section as usual when the verses are quite long. Prima della prima donna, prima della prima volta, prima della prima droga, prima della prima idea. Now, as you might have noticed, this prima, before, okay, but also in this case first, because prima di or prima che means before something, before that, okay. But prima is also the adjective declined in the singular feminine form. The base adjective, so masculine singular, would be primo, il primo, the first. La prima is the first, always singular, but feminine. So here we have all feminine nouns, because we have before the first woman. Della here is preposizione articolata, so a preposizione semplice plus articolo determinativo. In this case we have di plus la, della. So before the first woman, before the first time, before the first drug, before the first idea. So donna, prima della prima donna, before the first woman. In many interpretations, you will find that this is hinting to sex, but it is not. Because here he explicitly said that actually this first line starts with prima della prima donna, before the first woman, because our first woman is the start of everything. And the first woman is, in fact, our mother. The origin of the universe, the origin of our life is our mother. So everything starts with the first woman. Everything starts with our mother. Prima della prima volta, before the first time. Now, here it could be, again, the first time as in the first time of anything. So the first time that you try to do anything. So I don't think anything specifically, but generally every first time. Okay, and then the drug. Now, the drug here is going to be mentioned several times, and in rap and trap is a common topic. Generally, in rap and trap, we talk about drugs as in substances, okay? Alterating substances. Here, since specifically the song is dedicated to social media and the internet in general, I think that it's safe to assume that here is not only drugs, as in commonly meant, but generally anything that creates addiction. So yeah, also social media. And then the first idea. Prima del mio vero amico, che l'ho visto andare via, prima di essere partito, prima di tornare qui. Before my true friend, before I saw him going away, before I left, before I came back here. Now, again, we keep going more or less. Prima is repeated something like more than 20 times, give or take. And che l'ho visto andare via is a bit of a poetic license, because the correct form would be che ho visto andare via, che l'ho visto, my true friend who I saw him going away. It is a little bit of a repetition of the subject, so the like in here the object. So the true friend who went away, because generally you would say il mio vero amico che ho visto andare via, my true friend who I saw going away. Normally we wouldn't repeat the pronoun. Here probably, I don't know if it is a matter of rhythm or to highlight the fact that the true friend left, so not being a true friend, or both scenarios. Then, and we keep going, dell'idea di aver fallito ogni volta che mi fido, che la gente mi fa schifo, che la gente è come me. Of course, here we have to imply prima, so prima dell'idea di aver fallito, ogni volta che mi fido, prima che la gente mi faccia schifo, prima che la gente sia come me, oppure ogni volta che la gente mi fa schifo, ogni volta che la gente è come me. Here it's quite free, the formula, so you can interpret it how you want. So, implied before the idea of having failed, every time I trust, every time that people disgust me, every time that people are like me. So, here we have clearly trust issues, and fun fact, I'm not making it up. Actually, Nayt was talking about the fact that this song came, it is the result of a therapeutic journey, okay? Long story short, he went through therapy and he finished a cycle of therapy which led as a result to this song and probably others. But at least this song specifically, at least because he mentioned that in an interview, is one or the result of this therapy cycle. And in fact, here we have a little bit of a mirror effect. So this hate towards people, this will to keep them away, but then realizing that people are just like me. This might be a reference to the fact that sometimes when we are annoyed by people, by the behavior of certain people, and I want to stress this, sometimes it is because that flaw is also one of our worst flaws. As in, sometimes when a behavior of another person annoys us, it is because we recognize one of our worst flaws in that person, in the behavior of that person. Again, it is not always the case, but if we are talking about the mirror effect, then this is the case. And it could be due to the context of introspection of this song. And then we have the last section of this first very long verse. And by the way, all the verses are like this. Prima di farmi domande, prima di essere svogliato, prima del giusto e sbagliato, io chi sono? Chi sei te? Before asking myself questions, before being lazy, before right and wrong, who am I? Who are you? 2 notes. Svogliato. Svogliato means lazy, but literally it means without will. So to describe a person who doesn't want to do something, because the S negate the rest of the word. So in this case, la voglia, the will, the wanting to do something. And this way, if you don't want to do something, you are lazy. This is the thought process. And then this first verse ends and goes towards the chorus with, who am I? Who are you? What does it mean? It means that before everything in life, so before even like, why am I being born? Why did I do things in a certain way? Before my addictions, before my ideas, before the friends, who left me, before of leaving, so things that I did in my life, before my experiences, before my failures, before my trust in other people, before realizing that what I see in other people annoying me is probably one of my flaws, before asking further questions, before losing the will of doing things, before thinking of what is right and what is wrong, the first thing, before doing anything of these things, we should ask ourselves, who am I and who are you? But before, who am I? So, like, in the end, before doing anything, we should try to understand who we are. So, doing introspection. That's why this is a little bit the result of his therapy cycle, okay? His therapy journey. So this is the question, very Socratic, if you will. Now, we have the chorus. Finché sai cosa prendi, non lo sai cosa perdi. Forse è tardi, dicevi, ce la fai, non lo so. As long as you know what you are taking, you don't know what you are losing. Maybe it's too late, you said. Can you do it? I don't know. So, fun fact, he said that the first part he wrote of the song was the chorus, and then he decided to start with the first verse with the first line of the first verse, because the first thing he thought about a start, so the first image he thought when he thought about the concept of beginning was his mother. Now, when here he's saying, when you know what you are taking, you don't know what you are losing. So it's a little bit the concept very famous of you realize what you had only when you lose it. Probably this is a possible interpretation, but prendere qualcosa, like to take something, often refers, like, or at least in certain contexts can refer to taking substances, okay, taking drugs. And given the context of the whole song, I think it would be safe to assume that there might be a hint to this meaning as well. And then here we don't have the anaphora of prima, we have the anaphora, even if less, of the word finché. Finché has different meanings. In this first case, it can be as long as, while literally finché means fino a che, so until that. And then we have la realtà non si vede finché io non ti vedo, finché tu non ci vedi me. Reality is invisible until I see you, until you see me. So, for example, as I explained, finché in this second case would be better to be translated until. Here we have a little bit of a paradox, because reality is usually defined as something like everything you can see. And here there is the negation of this universal concept. That's why it is a bit of a paradox or an oxymoron, if you will. And reality does not exist until, since we are human beings, we see, we understand each other. So reality is based, as humans, we could say, on empathy among each other. And talking about empathy between each other, supportarci a vicenda, sopportarci dicendo che ne vale la pena, dimmi, è vero o non ci credi? Supporting each other, putting up on each other by saying that it's worth it. Tell me, is it true or you don't believe it? So here, for example, we have an example of paronomasia, so like a play on words. Because we have the assonance between the verb supportare and sopportare. Now, supportare means to support, to be there for someone in this case. And then we have sopportare. Sopportare generally means to endure, in this case to put up with, because we are talking about sopportare qualcuno, so to put up, to tolerate someone else. And this play on words shows a bit the two sides of a relationship. So providing support, but also endure bad moments, but also each other, because there is no such thing as a perfect couple, as like perfect love at first sight and whatnot. A relationship has to be built through difficulties, of course. And then we have la realtà non si vede finché tu non mi vedi, finché io non ci vedo te. Reality is invisible until you see me, until I see you. And here we have a very peculiar chiasmus. Why? Chiasmus is when you have a construction with two sections and these sections mirror each other. So we have A, B, B, A sort of situation. And here we have a chiasmus in a chiasmus, because we have it in both here and here when he says io non ti vedo finché tu non ci vedi me. Here we have a chiasmus because we have io, tu, io. So io ti vedo, I see you, tu ci vedi me. So tu vedi me. Io vedo te, tu vedi me. I see you, you see me. This is the first chiasmus inside this portion of the verse. And is the same structure then when we have tu non vedi me, io non vedo te. Tu, you don't see me, I don't see you. And then, if you notice, we have the chiasmus between these two parts, because in the first time it is I, you, I. And here is you, I, you. So it is the same structure in chiasmus, but reversed between the first part and the second part. So then we have the second verse, which is again very long. Senza oggetti o costumi, progetti, immaginari posteri, costretti al presente, sfuggirci ubriachi e con i postumi. Without objects or costumes, plans, imagining posterity forced to the present, escaping drunk or hangover. So, here we have another play on words, posteri, postumi. I posteri are like the people who come after us, of course. And then I postumi, generally in the extended version, postumi da sbornia, is the hangover. So when you drank too much and then you feel like a little bit dizzy the day after. So we have this image of being bare naked, so without anything, so objects, concrete things, material things, costumes, so like masks, something to hide us, and projects, so a future. Imagining the people who are going to come after, or like what is going to happen in the future, blocked in the present, like we are high. So a little bit this image of how we are living life right now without nothing, thinking about a future like we are in prison in the present, and we feel like we are dizzy, like high all the time. Che aspetti? Io, nessuno a salvarci, fissare il muro e stancarsi, trovare un buco e saltarci. Who are you waiting for? I am waiting for nobody to save us, staring at the wall and getting tired, finding a hole and jumping in. Now, here the meaning is quite broad, quite vague, so you really can interpret it in several ways. One way I can see to interpret this is related to the hopeless description we had before. So, who are you even waiting for? Because I'm waiting for nobody to save us, like really hopeless setting. Staring at a wall and being tired to be stared at the wall. So this probably rejection of being bored, and then probably this hole where he want to jump in might be what in English is called rabbit hole, which is very easy to realize in social media. And again, the reason why I'm thinking about this interpretation is because Nayt explicitly said that this song is about the internet, social media. And what do we do on social media when we cannot tolerate boredom? We jump into rabbit holes of doom scrolling or generally scrolling online. Io non credo a chi mi chiama, credo abbia sbagliato nome. Io non credo a chi mi ama, di più non credo abbia valore. I don't believe anyone who calls me. I think they got the wrong name. I don't believe anyone who loves me. Even more, I don't think this, implied, has any value. This, of course, is a very powerful image of how Nayt sort of depicts himself. I hope that now he has a better image of himself. Of course, like with these struggles, you never really escape, because it says a lot on his self-esteem. So, like, the idea here is when someone calls my name, I think so little of myself that I'm not really thinking they are talking about me, they are calling me. I just think they are calling another person or got the wrong name, got the name wrong. So it's actually a mistake. They are not really dedicating their attention to me. And in fact, this is confirmed by I don't believe anyone who loves me, I don't think loves towards me has any value. I don't think I have to add anything else. And then we have the closing part of the second verse, perché in tutta questa roba che c'ho addosso mi confondo e non so se mi conforta o mi ostacolo al confronto. Because in all this stuff that I have on me, I get confused and I don't know if it comforts me or it hinders my comprehension, my comparison or debates, or debate. Because confronto is when you put two things and, literally speaking, and you compare them. So in this case is the ability to judge and tell things apart. So to think, to reason. And what is this roba, which is a colloquialism, is like in English to say this stuff, okay? I would see two main meanings here. Metaphorically speaking, from one side, you could think about trauma. So, with all the trauma I accumulating, I'm not really understanding if things give me comfort or they cloud my judgment. But the other thing that can comfort or cloud the judgment is things you take. So in this way, you have on you. So again, drugs, both more broad, more strictly speaking, so addicting substances, or since again we're talking about the internet, also social media. So very broad meaning here. Then we have again the chorus, but it's the same. So we go and check the verse. Prima che qualcuno parli, prima che tu dica è tardi, prima che continui a farmi Com'è che continuo a farmi? Before anyone speaks, before you tell yourself it's late, before I keep taking drugs, how come I keep taking drugs? And again, farmi here is a slang usually specifically used for addictive substances. So, farsi means to take drugs. But again, here the drugs are not forcibly the substances, are most probably the social media, mainly in this part. Why? Because of what is said after. Prima di essere scontato o di essere scordato, prima di essere qualcuno che vuole essere ascoltato, before being predictable or being forgotten, before being someone who wants to be heard, so before all of these things, where essere scontato, here pay attention because it is different from dare per scontato, because in Italy, in Italian, dare per scontato means to take for granted. Essere scontato means being banal, being cheap. Prima che tu faccia un post, prima che controlli i like, prima che tu dia potere agli altri su quello che fai, before you make a post, before you check the likes, before you give power to others on what you do, about what you do, because su, as I explained other times, can be on, so like ho messo sul tavolo, I put on the table, or su quello che fai, in this case is about, concerning. And here we have social media terms because post doesn't really have a used translation for in Italian. However, like it is used in English mainly more recently, but originally, in fact, is still used. We had a translation. The social media like was translated literally as mi piace, so I like it. And it was created on Facebook because on Facebook we had in Italy the first likes you could put, and instead of like we had mi piace. But of course, younger generations. Nayt has my same age, give or take. Generally now it is a little bit more used, the English version, but mi piace is still very, very common as used translation, while for post that's not a case. And here we have a very powerful statement. Because he says, before you make a post, before you check the likes, so before you become addicted to social media, giving powers to others, because every time more addicted we are to social media, more power we give on us to others. So before doing any of these things, and even more, prima di mettere i vestiti dell'amore, di esserne investiti, di crescere aggressivi, chi siamo? Before putting on clothes of the love, of being enveloped in it, to grow aggressive, who are we? So, here, again, is the same as the first verse. The whole point, before thinking about anything happen on social media, before becoming addicted to anything, the first thing we should focus on is who are we? Because once we have a very strong idea of the self, once we know who we are, generally we also know what we need. And thus we become less vulnerable to addictions because less self-aware, less sure of yourself you are, more vulnerable you are mainly to mechanism of addictions, and fostered by social media algorithms, taking advantage of this vulnerability for how the human psyche works. And here there is a very interesting play on words and generally meaning of the words. Why? Because here we are playing with the root of the word to dress, because vestito is from the past participle of vestire, like to dress. Here it is used as a noun, so I vestiti di clothes. And then we have the play on words with investiti, which is literally to put clothes on, in, vestire, vestire in, to be clothed in, which however evolved a lot in Italian and gained and developed several meanings. So we have the meaning of granting a position, investire qualcuno con una carica, so like grant a position to someone. It can mean to invest resources, for example, very often money or time. It can also mean to be hit with violence and thus to be run over. So it is a verb very full of meaning. Now, what could be the interpretation of this play on word? That it might suggest that love is both something we wear as a mask and something that can run us over, but also something we could put we put effort in. So like love can be many of these things, mainly if we didn't do the thing we should do first. So thinking about who we are, becoming more self-aware with all the consequences that this would have. And then we have probably a hinting to the clothing industry, but I'm not sure about it. Could be, since we are talking about social media and how important image on social media is, we might have this second meaning as well. And of course, the hinting at being aggressive, okay, which is something very common and fostered by social media algorithms. Because, of course, when you polarize opinion, putting people against each other, you generate much more engagement, and thus the algorithm automatically fosters this human behavior, so makes humans more aggressive and tries to polarize them, because this creates engagement, creates content, creates data, and so on and so on and so on. Then we have once again the chorus, which once again does not change, so we go to the outro, where he repeats several times come vorrei, which is repeated specifically 6 times, che tu vedessi me. Come vorrei che tu vedessi me. How I wish that you could see me, which is the other point, because one of the main points, like before doing anything in life, we should understand who we are, we should do introspection, we should be introspective, and the other thing that is the pillar of human existence is to see the other, okay? It is empathy, it is sharing, it is connection with the other, it is connection with other human beings. So, this was pretty much everything I had to say concerning the lyrics. Of course, there are many open interpretation of these songs, of this song, of these verses, of these lines, because there is some space for interpretation, but it is very clear that the criticism is to the system of social media. Generally, I agree on the fact that it ranked so high after watching the interviews and understanding more and analyzing the lyrics. My only issue, however, is that pretty much same logic of the problem the song of Saif had, because the reason why this song didn't hit properly the first time, like, or at least during the festival, is because Nayt has a lot of things to say. There are many things being said in such a short time of the song. So since the juice of the song is in the verses, of course there is a lot also in the chorus, but he says many things in the verses, with the fact that it is a rap, it's hard to catch everything. So you literally need to take a moment, go check the lyrics and understand them. So my only issue with this song is that it didn't hit. I had to go and dig into the lyrics, check the the interviews, and then I really understood, and I had second thoughts on this song. I reevaluated this song. With only the festival, this wouldn't have happened, because this song, at least for me, didn't hit, because Nayt had so many things to say and he really had to rush through them. Now, this is what I had to say about Prima Che by Nayt. Tell me what you think about this song in the comments. That said, grazie everyone for watching and arrivederci.